presidents, dear speakers, dear guests, colleagues, friends, on behalf of Eurasian Universities Union, EURAS, I would like to welcome you, all of our participants from EURAS member universities, quality assurance agencies, Turkish and international university representatives at today's webinar on quality in higher education, which is the first online event of the fall term of this academic year. I greet all of our audience respectfully on behalf of EURAS and organization committee. During today's webinar, you will be informed about quality assurance in the context of higher education from two esteemed guest speakers. Our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Muzaffer Elmas, the President of the Turkish Higher Education Quality Council, and guest speaker, Maria Kelo, the Director of ENQA, European Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education. We will try to highlight the relevance and importance of quality and quality assurance, especially in the current pandemic conditions. Please be reminded that the recording of this webinar will be shared on EURAS website and EURAS YouTube account, and we will send the certificate of attendance to all those who attend fully at today's webinar. Also, note that you can ask your questions via the chat function or Q&A function of the Zoom. Let me introduce today's webinar moderator, Professor Dr. Funda Sivrikaya Şerifoğlu, who serves as the team leader in the Institutional Evaluation and Accreditation Program of the Turkish Higher Education Quality Council and work as the advisor to the Board of Trustees of Istanbul Aydın University in Turkey. As time and the flow of this webinar permits, our moderator will try to ask your questions to our guest speakers at the end of their talks. I would like to thank our moderator, Professor Funda Sivrikaya Şerifoğlu, for moderating today's webinar and our esteemed speakers for joining us. And I would like to leave the microphone to our moderator, Professor Funda. It's your turn now. Thank you so much. We can't hear you, Professor Funda.
Okay. Well, hello again, dear presidents, dear speakers, dear EURAS members and guests. You are all welcome to our webinar today. I would like to ask the President of EURAS, Dr. Mustafa Aydın, to deliver the opening remarks of our webinar. The microphone is yours, Dr. Mustafa Aydın. Please.
Ben öncelikle çok değerli YÖKAK Başkanımız Profesör Doktor Muzaffer Elmas hocamıza, ENQA Direktörümüz Maria Kelo'ya ve bütün bu çalışmalarda büyük emeği geçen Funda hocamıza bu EURAS'ın bu değerli etkinliğine katıldıkları için kendilerine çok teşekkür ediyorum.
First of all, I'd like to thank the President of Higher Education Quality Council of Turkey, Professor Muzaffer Elmas, and our valuable guest, Maria Kelo, from Director of ENQA, and of course, our moderator, Professor Funda Şerifoğlu, who has been contributing a lot to this project, and joining us today at this EURAS webinar. Thank you.
Tabii özellikle pandemi döneminde artı eğitim öğretim döneminin tam başlangıç aşamasında EURAS'ın böyle bir etkinliği organize ederek eğitim kurumlarına, değerli akademisyenlerimize bir ön açacağına çok eminim ve bunun için de gerçekten katılımcı hocalarıma çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Of course, during this pandemic time and at the beginning of the new academic year, it's very important for EURAS to organize events such as this. And I think for all the participants, this will be a very valuable opportunity to learn from one another.
Ve inanıyorum ki bu son 6 ayda yaşadığımız bu gerçekten çok ender rastlanan bu sorunlar karşısında çözüm odaklı ve değerli hocalarımızın başta Sayın Muzaffer Elmas hocamız ve ENQA direktörü olmak üzere bizleri ışık tutacaktır fikirleriyle.
And especially in this last 6 months, in this very rare situation that we are in, we're going to have very good solutions at the end of this webinar, thanks to our valuable speakers, Professor Elmas and ENQA Director, Ms. Maria Kelo.
Bu süreçte ağırlıklı olarak bütün dünya ya hibrit bir modeli gündeminde taşıyorlar ağırlıklı olarak. Ki Türkiye ağırlıklı olarak hibrit model üzerine gidiyor. Online ve bir kısım üniversitelerimiz yüz yüze. Ancak her ne yaparsak yapalım belirli kalite kuralları içerisinde onu yürütmek zorundayız.
During this time, we see many hybrid models, especially in Turkey, part of online and face-to-face education. But no matter what we are doing, we have to pay more attention to quality assurance at this time.
Bu açıdan bugünkü EURAS'ın webinarı hepimize bir yol açacaktır, bir yol haritası belirleyecektir.
So this EURAS webinar today will be kind of a roadmap for all of us today.
EURAS bünyesindeki birçok üniversitemiz şu anda bu webinarı takip ediyor.
Many of our EURAS members are now following this webinar here with us today.
Birçok alanda olduğu gibi Avrasya Üniversiteleri Birliği olarak da bu süreçte üniversitelerimizin eğitim süreçlerinde nasıl bir yöntem takip etmelerini özellikle kalite açısından yine EURAS'ın ön açıcılığında onlara ışık tutacağımıza inanıyorum.
With the light and the map that Eurasian Universities Union are providing to all their members, especially during these academic processes, will be very valuable during this time where we're starting our new academic year.
Avrasya Üniversiteler Birliği yani EURAS, ENQA'nın bir member olarak, bir üyesi olarak ENQA'dan görmüş olduğumuz bu destek bizler için çok kıymetli.
As an affiliate member of ENQA, Eurasian Universities Union, EURAS, has put great value to this membership, and we thank ENQA for all their support.
Bendeniz hem Avrasya Üniversiteler Birliği Başkanı olarak hem İstanbul Aydın Üniversitesi Mütevelli Heyet Başkanı olarak başta değerli Muzaffer Elmas hocamız, ENQA'nın çok değerli direktörü, değerli hanımefendi olmak üzere, Maria Kelo olmak üzere ve diğer katılımcılarımıza bu toplantımızın hepimizin için, üniversitelerimiz için, öğrencilerimiz için, eğitimimiz için faydalı olacağını düşüncesiyle tekrar katılımlarından dolayı şükranlarımı sunuyorum. Çok istifade edeceğimizi düşünüyorum. Tekrar değerli hocalarıma saygılarımı arz ediyorum. İyi günler diliyorum.
As the president of Eurasian Universities Union, EURAS, and Istanbul Aydın University, I once again want to thank Professor Muzaffer Elmas for giving us this valuable time, and of course ENQA Director Ms. Maria Kelo, and all the EURAS members, and hope that this meeting, I'm sure it will be very productive and fruitful. And I once again thank all our participants for being here with us today, and I wish a productive and a good webinar to all of us.
Thank you, Dr. Mustafa Aydın, President of EURAS, for the opening remarks. Thank you very much. Now I would like to introduce to you our two esteemed panelists. Professor Dr. Muzaffer Elmas is the President of the Turkish Higher Education Quality Council. Before this post, he served as the Vice Rector first, and then as the Rector of Sakarya University, a leading higher education institution of Turkey in quality, information, and university management systems. He coordinated several projects on quality and quality assurance, including external evaluations by EUA and HEQC, and accreditation procedures of around 50 programs. He led the institutional applications of his university for the Turkey Excellence Award, EFQM Excellence Award, and the Global Excellence Award. Professor Dr. Elmas is a member of the Disaster and Emergency Management Authority of Turkey, Earthquake Advisory Board, and the Council of Higher Education Vocational Qualifications Institution. He is a permanent member of the Turkish Academy of Sciences. Welcome, Professor Dr. Elmas. Our second panelist today, Maria Kelo. Yeah, welcome. Maria Kelo is currently serving as the director of the ENQA Secretariat and has a wide range of experience related to higher education. Her tasks within ENCA include managing the work of the ENCA Secretariat, acting as secretary to the ENCA board, supporting and coordinating ENCA member agencies, managing projects, and representing the association. She previously worked as senior officer for the Academic Cooperation Association, where she was actively involved as an expert in higher education policy development and reforms at national and European level, such as the Bologna process and ET 2010 Education and Training Work Program, higher education internationalization and international cooperation, mobility, student services and attractiveness of the European higher education, and transnational education. Welcome, Ms. Maria Kelo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, you would guess what my first word would be in this webinar. It's Corona. The coronavirus and COVID-19 have changed our lives entirely. The education system is one of the most affected sectors, which is recovering relatively fast as compared to other sectors. All the universities have been working very, very hard on projects to improve their infrastructures for distant and blended learning and to develop the associated competencies of their human resources. Professor Dr. Muzaffer Elmas, we would be happy to hear from you about the Turkish Higher Education Quality Council, its mission and its projects. And please tell us also about how COVID-19 pandemic affected your work in your institution. Microphone is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, I would like to present about Turkish Higher Education Quality Council. Thank you for EURAS, this webinar, and thanks moderator and everyone. Firstly, I talk about Turkish higher education system with numbers. Firstly, I am going to look at, there are 208 universities, including both state and foundation institutions in Turkey. There are 8 million enrollment students at all levels of higher education. There are 174,000 academic staff working in the institution in our country. Very big family in Turkish higher education family. And quality milestones in Turkey. The quality assurance activities start after Bologna process 2001 and MUDEC accreditation and engineering program accreditation. After that, establishment of UDEC, similar to Quality Council, 2005, and 2010, Turkish Qualification Framework for Higher Education, National Qualification Framework. 2015, Regulation of Quality Agency in Turkish Higher Education, connect to Turkish Higher Education Council. But 2017, establishment of Turkish Higher Education Quality Council as an independent organization, financial and operational agency. Our duties are external evaluation. We are 3 duties, and one of them external evaluation and accreditation. Secondly, an authorization, recognition of accreditation agency, and lastly, dissemination of quality culture. Our goal is to be compatible with world agencies, suitable for our country, building a flexible, simple, and dynamic quality systems, and to develop the quality culture with our university. Very important for us, membership of ENCOA, International Turkish Higher Education Quality Council strategic vision. So it is an issue that emphasizes with precision. ENCOA membership is a very important stage for our agency and our country. It is important that we have become a member of ENCOA and other umbrella organizations in a short time. ENCOA and INCOA World Accreditation Agency, umbrella, and North Asia Quality National Agency, umbrella organization, and CIA, US Quality Agencies umbrella is. ENCOA evaluation report and strength our agency. The work done by Turkish Higher Education Quality Councils so far to create a quality culture in the Turkish higher education system and higher education institutions, with the aim of complying with the European standard and guidelines. We use a platform and online tools for the implementation of the internal quality assurance system, CAMIS. The procedure in place for promotion stakeholders' participation in agency activities. And gain of ENCOA membership. One of them, Turkish higher education quality criteria, complies with European higher education area and international standards. Supporting of the European higher education area reference Turkish higher education qualification framework by Turkish higher education council criteria. Increasing the international visibility and awareness of Turkish Higher Education Quality Council and Turkish Higher Education System. Ensuring that Turkish Higher Education Quality Council is leading body in information, infrastructure, and training on evaluators. A number of, you look at our activities 2020, and we 160 higher education institutions we have external evaluated, and 18 plus 5 authorization and recognition of accreditation agencies. We tried evaluators and 7 evaluator training for during the pandemic, evaluator training online and blended training. And there are 796 accredited programs in Turkey. About 10% programs accredited in Turkey. All documents are in our website. Now, I explain our external evaluation and accreditation steps. Firstly, all higher education institutions explain and global trends and resources and stakeholders and graduates' competencies, research, service to society. All universities explain this issue. Then university university and internal quality systems in vision, mission, and learning teaching activity and research activities and social contributing and international policies. After that, university explain performance indicators and all system, all activities and plan, do, check, act, cycle, complete. What is important here? The establishment of this system to complete the PDCA cycle. After the evaluation, after the evaluators come to a university and external quality system, some accreditation, sometime a quality audit and thematic evaluation and degree programs accreditation and evaluation and benchmarking. There are in Turkey one agency, institutions accreditation, for institutions accreditation. Others are program accreditation. Our systems in one page. And continuous improvement and leadership. And other picture this. And learning, teaching, research and development level. After that, go up. You want to together and university and higher education institution. Our institutional external evaluation and accreditation criteria. There are 5 main titles and 22 criteria and 58 sub-criteria. But these our criteria connect to European standard and guidelines, but extra quality system, management system, and research development, we have extra criteria. All criteria, our criteria in university, the self-evaluation report, university explain, and this criteria rubric with rubric approach principle. All criteria and sub-criteria defined to act, to plan, do, check, act cycles. The maturity levels of the sub-criteria were rated with score from 1 to 5. However, but to institutions themselves and evaluation teams will evaluate the institution's level of maturity. The council determines these scores and decide for accreditation. Our criteria and total points. You look at, and very important is for accreditation and student-centered teaching, learning activities, and learning research resources, and continued monitoring and updating of programs. And high numbers is focusing the main criteria, other criteria point, and 600 criteria, and after 600 criteria point accreditation, and others not accreditation. In order to flexible, informative, less bureaucratic, Turkish Higher Education Quality Council is using management information system called as Covet. It is a 5 modules which are evaluation modules, accreditation agency modules, evaluator training modules, and self-evaluation report modules, and quality commission knowledge base. All activities of Turkish Higher Education Quality Council, all activities on the digital system. Now I talk about an university and higher education nowadays in the world. Higher education, you know, everybody knows this world, and higher education is in turbulence. Why? We talk about this picture and human adaptability and change of technology is together and cross this, and this slide can tell us digital needs more visually. The rate of human adaptability on technological change is staying behind. We want to close this gap. We need two things for this. One of them, competencies and digital competencies, complex problem solving, communication skills, critical thinking, etc. All competence, these competencies and lifelong learning and university students, and for everybody. And secondly, is doing so with secondly and leadership, very important. Agile leadership, goal focuses, and integrate management information system. Is doing so, we can adapt to the complex world more easily for these things. No surprise that what really happened is waking up from sleep. Online higher education and university decide to online training and online exams for the spring semester. Two types of university emerge here. The first group consists of universities that have provided online education already for years. And the second group consists of universities that have not previously applied online courses program or so few. Universities use different methods according to their infrastructure and number of students. Curriculum and course materials prepared for face-to-face environments were transferred online. Some problems on this implementation: internet infrastructure, access to internet or technologies, quality and quantity of course materials, inexperience of academicians and students in distance education. But most of the time, these problems are quickly resolved from Higher Education Quality Council and universities in Turkey. This process was managed dynamically in our country. No surprise here. We just have to wake up from our sleep. COVID-19 brought to them distance education during the crisis period. Nowadays, 80% of students want to formal education. Other picture is this picture should be complete. But this picture and time 2018. Let's complete this picture next time. The institutional accreditation process very postponed to October, November, December in Turkey. Our criteria have been updated according to distance learning. accreditation activities into two parts, 70% online and 30% face-to-face. We are planning virtual site visit with limited face-to-face site visit. Site visit is students' academic and physical infrastructure. Our document show our website, yokak.tr. Future, I talk about future education, and not all courses might be online. Adopted a blended system. We should target the same learning outcomes in online education. Very important. We have to make our plan accordingly. Student motivation, very important for learning. To manage the complex network and university with diversity accreditation processes that can measure the result are getting more and more important. Extra time. I shortly and this management system. This university management model and center of this model, vision, mission, and culture, quality, culture, and resources, and education training targets, and resources target, and social contributor, and stakeholder focusing, and adding value, and strategic direction and leadership, change transformation. University management model is model. And last slide, I hope that their leaders can really facilitate our students to develop multiple thinking, imagination, and creativity for their beautiful futures. Thank you. Thank you very much. Finish my presentation and I explain you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Elmas, for this presentation and the details of the Quality Council of Turkey. Ms. Maria Kelo, I would like to ask the same questions to you. Would you please inform us about ENQA, its mission, its purposes, its projects, and also about how COVID-19 pandemic affected the ongoing work at your institution? Microphone is yours, Ms. Kelo.
Thank you very much indeed. Warm thanks to EURAS, first of all, for this very kind invitation. EURAS is a valued affiliate of ENQA, so it's very great pleasure for me to be here today. We unfortunately, due to the COVID crisis, we had to cancel our large members event for all of our members and affiliates, which was to take place in Istanbul in April. But then, of course, none of us could travel, so we hope to be able to do that in a couple of years. So a couple of words about ENQA. ENQA is the European Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education. That's our official name. And we represent over 100 quality assurance bodies across the European higher education area. And we have also some of those organizations that are interested in quality assurance or are regional quality assurance bodies outside of Europe, and they also contribute to our work. In the European higher education area, which is composed of 48 countries, as you will know, ENQA represents 45. So it's quite a large coverage of the countries in the European higher education area. ENQA has a total of 55 members, and the difference between members and affiliates is that the membership requires the agency to pass an independent external review against the commonly agreed standards and guidelines for quality assurance in the European higher education area. That's a very long name, so we call them just the ESG. That's the standard requirements for higher education in Europe. And so we do that review of the agencies every 5 years, so that we assure that the agencies carry out their activities along this ESG And through that check, we also make sure that the institutions that are reviewed or accredited by those agencies have in place systems in line with the ESG, and that therefore they meet those requirements. Now, I wanted to just see if I can share some of my part of a presentation, just a couple of slides. I hope you are seeing that. Can I
Yes,
share?
we are.
Yes, very
Yes,
good.
no problem.
So I just give you a couple of notes of what ENQA does, and then indeed what has the pandemic done to us, if you like. So ENQA is, like I said, it's a membership organization. So we have been really created by the agencies and for the agencies. You might know that in the European higher education area, we have also the European Quality Assurance Register, EQAR, which is, let's say, our sister organization of sorts, but actually ENQA is one of the founding members of EQAR. And the difference between ENQA, our organization, and EQAR is that ENQA is really declaredly there for the agencies and speaks for the agencies. EQAR is an independent register and therefore has a bit of a different task. So ENQA, as the spokesperson of the agencies, if you like, it really is the voice of them in the policy making. So that means principally, of course, in the European higher education area policy making, so the Bologna process. We attend many of the working groups, we take part in the preparation of ministerial conferences and so on, and also in the policy making at the European Union level. So that's the 27 countries at the moment. So we bring ahead our expertise and knowledge to these policymaking processes and also promote external quality assurance and its role in higher education. Very important activity, like you will have already guessed, for us is the review of the agencies. So we do that for all the agencies every 5 years, and we do around 15, some years 18 such reviews every year. So it's a very big part of our work. And of course, with reviews come all kind of other activities, training of experts, training of agencies themselves, sharing of experiences on the reviews, progress visits, follow-up activities. So a full package of activities that a normal quality assurance agency or accreditation agency would do. But then we also coordinate a lot of projects on quality assurance. We take part in other people's projects on quality assurance. We organize a lot of events, webinars, and participate to events organized by other people. And this project, it's really to either develop quality assurance systems in different countries in Europe or other parts of the world, or to develop specific areas of quality assurance. So for example, now we have two large projects. One is to develop quality assurance and accreditation in the African continent. It's called the HAQUA initiative. And the other one is the SHARE project, which is to support, where ENQA is to support the further development of quality assurance frameworks in the ASEAN region. But then also we have projects such as a project on micro-credentials, where ENQA contributes on to how to make a system where also micro-credentials are properly inserted into the European framework, all elements for recognition, for credits, but then also for quality assurance, similarly for the European university networks, etc. So we try to help agencies develop these elements. And luckily for us, in these specific situations, a couple of years ago, we also had a working group on quality assurance of e-learning. And we produced some guidelines on how to use the ESG, the European Standards and Guidelines, for e-learning. And we thought that that report had been published. It was quite interesting. People read it, but then we thought it kind of didn't get so much attention anymore. Apart from now, of course, with COVID, everybody has gone to fish out that publication again. So sometimes you do work where you don't necessarily see immediately how necessary it might be, and then you proceed and something comes up and it will be very important. And of course, we give a lot of information both within Europe and outside of Europe on quality assurance and on issues related to that. So what happened with the COVID crisis? Well, I think at the very beginning, the priority of ENQA's members, so the agencies, and therefore also in a similar vein, similar manner of ENQA, has been that of being flexible and supportive. We all realized that this was an exceptional situation where nobody had the right answers, nobody knew what was going to happen. So in that sense, we were all in the same boat. It was really important to allow higher education institutions to focus on addressing the current situation and planning for this academic year that has now started, try to minimize the stress and pressure on them, and also support them by reducing, where possible, any additional administrative burden. Of course, there has been a lot of requests, both at the national level for the agencies and to ENQA on e-learning. How do you do e-assessment? How do you protect students' rights? How do you make sure that the quality is, if not as good, but sufficiently good also in e-learning modes? So many agencies have been providing recommendations, guidelines, training webinars, as well as ENQA has also been doing things like that. And we've also been doing a lot of reassurance work. We've told the agencies, don't worry if you need to postpone your accreditations or if you need to move them online, it's okay. You don't get kicked out of ENQA or the register. And also agencies have reassured institutions, if you now need to go online for your educational programs, you will not be automatically excluded from accreditation or get into trouble because you do things differently. We understand. Of course, we had to adjust to online with all we do. All our events were moved online. We had to extend the terms of our board and president so that we could hopefully maybe in April have a meeting where we can meet face-to-face and have elections face-to-face. So all kind of little things like we all know. We travel a lot at ENQA. We are always on the road, apart from in the last 7 months where we have been sedentary. I'm now talking to you from my home. So that's of course something we have all become familiar with. For agencies, it has also been very important to really not only be engaged in, but actually promote dialogue with the national stakeholders and also see where there might be need for changes in the regulations. For example, there might be legal restrictions on the evaluation cycle, so maybe negotiations of how that could be extended, or then physical meeting, which I didn't imagine, physical meeting requirements for panels or decision-making bodies or accreditation councils. So if the law says the accreditation council's decision is only valid if they meet physically, how do you do in this situation? So we've done a lot of, let's say, promotion work of legal support or enabling conditions for agencies to do their job and for us to be able to do our job. For external reviews, we have really seen two main approaches. One is to postpone the reviews. The ESG, the European standards, do not actually determine it has to be every 5 years or 7 or 10. Usually that's a national regulations. So this was at least at the beginning, the preferred option. Nobody knew in March for how long this would be going on. So the first idea was let's just postpone everything by 2 or 3 or 4 months. But now we see more and more, because our perspective is end 2020, perhaps even summer 21, that we have to go online. The agencies have to go online, at least temporarily. So this is clearly the trend at the moment. And we see very much, like Professor Elmas was saying, a hybrid approach. So agencies have said the simpler, smaller procedures, such as maybe initial accreditation or follow-up procedures or program reviews, can be more easily done online. And then maybe full institutional reviews, or then of course reviews of medical or lab-based programs, many have preferred to postpone those. This is not the unique picture. There's all kind of variations of this model, but this is what we see in the big lines. And then of course also elaborating guidelines, training experts, experiment also simply with the best tools. Addressing safety and confidentiality concerns has been a big issue, and boosting preparation. And what we have seen is that agencies are quite unified in thinking that online site visits are not and should not be seen as a second-class accreditation process. They are very serious. They have to be taken very seriously. They have to meet all the technical, practical, procedural requirements as any other visits, the expert requirements, etc. They have to be prepared very, very well. Some people say it takes actually much more time to prepare a good online site visit than a physical meeting. And so that is the line that we are telling agencies. This is not a discounted review. This is a really hardcore review as any review is. And this is all same true also for ENQA. So we have also started to now carry out our agency reviews online, and we have the first experiences. And it really comes down to the dedication and expertise of those who are involved in that process. If you have good experts who are dedicated, who know their business, who prepare well, then it can work as well as a physical visit. So I think you will ask us later on about the future. So I will leave that for a moment, unless you want me to say something about that now.
Thank you, Ms. Kelo. This is a very nice presentation. Thank you very much. I will ask about future, and there are some questions coming from audience also about the future of online education and its quality. But before that, I would like to forward one of the questions to you personally. The question says, let me see, moment. Ms. Kelo, which are the most difficult ESG standards for QA agency to comply with? Where is research included in ESG standards? The most difficult ESG standard.
Well, that's not an easy question actually to answer, because of course the easy answer is it really depends. There are things that are difficult for some that are very easy for others.
Yeah.
But I would say that one of the things that many agencies have struggled is to really find the right way of being independent, while at the same time, of course, being connected into their higher education system. So it's this careful balance between dependency and independence. And we always talk about the importance of stakeholder involvement. So also there, that balance comes back. So you have to involve everybody, listen to everybody. Your agencies are serving the sector. So they cannot be in isolation and not listen to them. But while listening to the sector, they have to be able to take that arm's length, we call it, so arm's length distance, and protect their independence. So for many agencies, that has been maybe quite difficult balance to strike. Another one, which is perhaps considered as a less central or less important standards, and maybe also that's why it hasn't been really so fully completed in most agencies, is the one on thematic analysis. One of the standards requires that agencies analyze their reports, analyze the information they collect through their accreditation processes, and provide some useful information for the policymakers, for the sector, etc. And that we see that is often very difficult because it's not considered as the key part of the agency's work, and therefore it's left kind of at the last of the list of many, many activities they have to do.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's another question which is very much related to your last slide. You said that you're going to do the reviews in a hybrid fashion, so to say. The question is, if the COVID-19 pandemic lasted for a longer time than anticipated, what happens? What are your recommendations for the agencies?
Okay. This is maybe not necessarily the official stand, but I think I've always considered also when we talk about e-learning that the mode is, of course, puts conditions on us, and we have to take that into consideration. But we should really more focus on what we do and not through which channel we do it. So my idea is I'm not very worried if we have to do online site visits for 6 months or 2 years. I think we just have to try to do them really, really well. Of course, what we have to do and what we will do as ENQA is we start to collect examples, we start to analyze them, we start to create kind of a bank of good practice. Because of course, while we start something new, we will not guess it correctly from the beginning. We make mistakes, so you make mistakes, the agencies make, everybody makes mistakes when they start trying out a new thing. But then by sharing all these experiences, we can perhaps advance, and maybe if we have to keep doing online site visits for 2 years, hopefully in 2 years, they will be better than they will be now, but we have to try.
Yeah, and my question to you about the document you prepared, you said you prepared a couple of years ago about e-learning. Is that document still relevant to today's conditions?
I think it's absolutely relevant. It's a reflection document on the European standards and guidelines, because those standards apply to all kinds of higher education, also e-learning, and they have always been designed so that they've been only there for 5 years, but they were designed so that they would apply to micro-credentials, e-learning, all kinds of different forms of education. But of course, they are quite generic standards. So for example, they say that the education program should take into account the students' needs, or you will be student-centered. Okay, but what does it really mean? So you have to really reflect on how do you translate that into a practical quality advice, in addition to being a standard for the different types of learning. So we've created these guidelines that says, okay, how do you read the requirement of this standard specifically for e-learning? What are the specific things you have to really worry about or think about? And I can put the link in the chat in a moment when I stop talking, so that it will be easily accessible to all the participants.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, yeah, I have a question on online education to both our guests today. And actually, our audience also directing the same questions to you. One of the questions says, what are the main challenges associated with online education? The other one says, accreditation of programs is to be more focused on right now during the pandemic conditions than the institutional accreditation. And yeah, the online education and quality assurance, accreditation of programs. What do you think about the future of online programs, the quality assurance of such programs? Professor Elmas, let me give the microphone to you first.
Thank you. If the pandemic does not end and still goes on, students' dormitories and classrooms might not be physically sufficient due to social distance. There might be different options here. Some courses are online, some courses are face-to-face. Not all courses may be online. Using a blended system can be important. In the past, education system around the world were accustomed to a particular pattern in which change was only superficial. COVID-19 has taken education systems beyond their comfort zone to find new, creative, and innovative solutions and create new learning opportunities for students. As organizations actively working in the field of education must be ensure that innovation never stops in the field of education. We must always think of new solutions and methods, measure, monitor, evaluate, and monitor their impact and quality. First of all, it is important to raise individuals with skills and competencies. It is important to develop mechanisms to achieve this in distance education. Decisions can be made on the basis of lessons. We should guarantee the same learning outcomes in online education. We have to make student motivation is very important for online learning. It will only be possible with the integrated system to measure whether students acquire the targeted learning outcomes in program or courses. Very important. The safe environment for online exams will not be easy. Therefore, it will be necessary to provide safe environment for exams. If the system is not integrated, accreditation and coordination between systems will take extra time, which may prevent the achievement of some of targets. As for the fall semester, online courses in Turkey and some courses face-to-face. I talk about, again, these sentences. And to manage the complex new world and universities with diversity, quality and accreditation processes are getting more and more important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And Ms. Kelo, how about you? What do you think about the future of online programs and the quality assurance for the online programs?
Yes, indeed. I think, of course, this pandemic has given a push to institutions to jump on something that is not new, not so very new. E-learning has been there for quite a few years now. And now even those who were hesitating or skeptical just had to go and do it because that was the only option. Now, in my opinion, we have to be quite careful and make a distinction between what is an emergency measure and what is a real e-learning program. And I think these are not the same. It's not enough to broadcast the professor speaking in front of a web camera to a class. That's not e-learning as such. That is an emergency measure and it's much better than nothing. It's of course great because otherwise students would be without anything. But in the longer term perspective, once we get out of this crisis mode of firefighting, if you like, we have to really think more carefully about e-learning and its quality. So while I'm not worried about the quality of the programs that have now been put online, because really the alternative is nothing. No attendance, no. So I think that's good enough for now. But creating a good e-learning program takes a long time. It often takes years. And those institutions that are really advanced in that, they've invested a lot of time and resources and expertise on developing those programs. So we cannot expect everybody else just to do it in a few weeks or a few months. And the same goes for the quality. Now, once we get from the emergency mode, there is of course the danger that everything that has been delivered online during the crisis will just stay there, and that's without any further scrutiny. And that's something we cannot, of course, afford. And I think at that point, we really need to have a very careful scrutiny of the online programs and using the same equally rigid, equally comprehensive evaluations as for all other programs. And I agree with Professor Elmas, it all comes down to the learning outcomes. That's really what we need to get out of it. So the mode is a mode. But of course, it does pose a lot of pedagogical, methodological issues that have to be carefully thought about, which wasn't possible in the 2 weeks that institutions had to just jump on it. So any future evaluation of those programs will need to take that into consideration and also evaluate what are the lessons learned. But I'm also sure that with all these new experiences, we know so much more of also of the problems that we have quite a lot of material to analyze and so help us develop further.
Yeah, but actually there is a question asking about technical faculties, but I think the question is also relevant to medical schools or arts faculties, any faculty or program which has some sort of a workshop or laboratory sessions or whatsoever. What do you think about such programs which do involve lab hours or workshops or anything that should be done face-to-face? Maria Kelo?
Yes, thank you. No, I think of course it's with today's technology and possibility of the students doing this studying from their home, they cannot try and operate online, or I mean, I know there are possibilities for that. A person in the US can operate somebody in another continent, but that's obviously not a possibility for an average student. The technology and tools are not there. So clearly this is something that should things continue like this for a long time, the programs have to be really rethought, and I don't have at all the answer to that. So that I don't know. For the moment, what I've seen happening is that things have been restructured so that the rhythm of studies, mixing the practical or lab-based and the theoretical have been switched so that people can focus more on the theoretical in these times, postpone, and probably we see many graduates graduating a little bit later than they would have normally done. but I think there's not so much that we can do about that at the moment.
Yeah, if the pandemic would last much longer than we anticipate, probably we would need some disruptive innovation. So little steps would not help us anymore. So we will make a huge leapfrog ahead, probably with a maybe completely new system, which we cannot now dream of.
Exactly.
Professor Elmas, do you want to contribute anything to this question of the programs with laboratory sessions or workshops?
Different things, and social science and engineering and health care and other education are different, I think. And some blended learning, for example, some courses and some programs 10% face-to-face, okay, but some programs and 50 face-to-face and online and different, and change programs in program. Sorry, one question and on the shape and program accreditation and institutional accreditation and different, and said that is program accreditation more important for progressing education program, institutional accreditation. It is not true.
No.
It is not true, but institutional accreditation including an internal quality system, including and program evaluation, program monitoring, and program result. But support program accreditation to institutional accreditation. I think.
Okay.
Because and very high education system go to very complex area. But to manage this complex area, very important is institutional focusing. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So institutional accreditation is a bigger framework, you say, which includes the program accreditation modules. Okay, so it's about quality culture in a way. Yeah, okay, perfect. Well, one other question asks about achieving and measuring the student motivation and satisfaction. Students, the people we usually tend to forget, who are usually passive stakeholders instead of active stakeholders in our plans. The students, the student motivation and satisfaction. How about this?
Kelo, Maria.
Kelo, Maria?
Yeah, you mean especially in these times of... that I only have anecdotal knowledge about that. ENQA hasn't studied that specifically, but I have talked with the European Students' Union, and they have, of course, heard some complaints or worries of students to say, is this really the same? Is this valid, etc.? My stand there is that universities, I actually wrote it just before this on the chat, universities or a program's quality is unlikely to just suddenly collapse in a couple of months. So I don't really believe that a good institution with good programs, with the right attitude that wants to do a good job, like I think most European universities are, I would hope so. They have this attitude. Why would they suddenly want to provide something that is not good at all? So I'm sure in a way that everybody's trying their best. It's the longer term, the mid and longer term that is really worrying, or rather requires more careful attention. Now, many students have actually expressed their gratitude as well as worries to the institutions for having tried at least to do something to keep the ball rolling and not to delay their studies and not to create more damage than by necessity has been perhaps done. So that's all I know. And of course, one important thing, very important thing, is the involvement of those students. So I think it's absolutely necessary that institutions, now that the first emergency is over perhaps, the COVID crisis is not over, but there is a bit of a few months of experience already to you have to really discuss with those students. Say, okay, what works, what doesn't work? Can we do something more? And let's discuss what more we can do. Maybe we cannot do everything you would like us to do, but maybe we can do a little bit more. And I think that dialogue is very important, even if it's for nothing else, but it really is important for people to feel, and students in this case, very important to feel that the institutions care, that they at least are interested in hearing how it is going. And even just that, I think, makes a big difference. So that's my advice.
Yeah, the human touch, you mean, right? That's very important. Yeah, to wrap up, actually, I would like to ask the title of our webinar as a question to both of you. Is quality a panacea? Can it solve all the problems? Does quality assurance or accreditation ensure quality in higher education institutions? Maria, let's start with you.
I always like to start with the easy questions, right? Yes, well, okay. I think, of course, I am a believer in quality, external quality assurance and accreditation. I'm sure it has an important role in ensuring quality, at least at the minimum conditions to quality that have to be reached, the program to exist, to protect the students' rights, etc. It's very important to create trust in the system, and I think on the other hand that also quality assurance can do also a lot more, and I think it should keep trying to do a lot more than ensuring the minimum quality standards, to encourage improvement, achievement of excellence, etc., so that quality doesn't become something static, but it's something that evolves and responds to the needs and is ready to move ahead. And I think, of course, quality as such is not the solution to all our problems, but I also think, and I think that's the interesting question from my point of view, is quality assurance a solution to all of our problems? And I think it really is not, and it shouldn't be. I think quality assurance should do what quality assurance of higher education should do. So we are there to ensure quality in the education, trust in the system, protect students' rights. But it's not the task of quality assurance necessarily to solve the problems related to sustainable development. We've been asked to do that, or to implement all kind of policy priorities that happen to come up in one country or the other for 1 year or for 10 years. And I think we have to be a bit protective of our task, also to maintain credibility and to be able to do well what only we can do well. And I think also the connect eventually with the other operators in the field, other tools that exist there. Quality assurance of higher education is not the only method to make good things happen in the world. So yes, we're there, and it's very important we are there, but we don't do everything alone.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. We must see quality as inclusive. Accreditation ensures the minimum level of quality. Quality is more than that. Quality is a culture, not just task to be accomplished. It must be institutional to sustain. In addition, not only accreditation, but also quality audit, thematic evaluation, degree programs, and benchmarking support quality. Quality processes are at Panacea. Managing the complex new world is very important, is quality, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Well, I think I should wrap up the webinar. Time is already up, but I tried to accommodate a few questions from the audience during the flow of the webinar, and I thank very much to our esteemed guests, Professor Muzaffer Elmas and Ms. Maria Kelo, to be with us today in this webinar, despite their very busy schedules, actually. And I also want to thank our audience to be with us today. And I would like to thank personally to EURAS for organizing this webinar, to be the moderator of this wonderful event. Well, thank you all and goodbye. See you all in the next EURAS activity.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you so much, Professor Funda, for moderating our session webinar today.
Thank you. And please forgive me if I could not ask all the questions coming. They were all very interesting. I tried to mix them, put them together, and I tried to ask them, most of them, but probably not all of them. So
I think we need to organize one more webinar about quality assurance.
Yes,
Yeah, we need to, you know, ask Maria and Professor Muzaffer again. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we will continue with our webinar series during this fall term. And next webinar will be held next week about blockchain. And we will be sending more information about our online workshop to you by email during this week. So keep following us on social media. And please send us your webinar suggestions. We will be glad to evaluate them. Thank you so much and hope to see you at our next event. Bye-bye.